some of the lessons I learned is that really first principle, you always feel better when you keep moving. So even when you feel pretty bad, you're always just going to feel better that you kept moving. Your blood, your muscles, your emotions, that was one thing. And I guess it became a non-negotiable.
What would you say is the secret sauce to getting ahead in a high-stakes, hyper-competitive field? Mindsets, tactics that might be attributed to your insane success?
I think you have to know who you are. The other thing to be radically honest about too is your weaknesses. Not to be afraid or defensive about them, but be like, yeah, you know what, I can work on that. I think that's also incredibly helpful when you're in pursuit of anything or even in a personal relationship.
The path to success is not linear. Any person who's achieved any degree of success in any realm in life is rife with failures.
I don't typically double down in my personal relationships unless it's the love part.
What habits or routines would you say have contributed most to your success? Yeah, let's go for it.
My thing is, like, when everyone's mad about everything, I'm like, was the other way, like on the, like, make yourself healthy again, right?
Yeah.
Was the other way better or working? Why is everyone so mad?
Exactly, it wasn't working. That's why we needed a shift, a seismic shift.
Yeah, so I don't understand.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it. City Cent approves.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
City Cent.
Thank you. And also, how do you make that non-political? Like, it's about health, your children's health.
Exactly.
It is not about politics.
No.
It's about health.
Right. We've
Yeah.
got to love our children more than we hate the other side, the opposing
Yes,
side.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
That's
Gabby
where I'm at.
Reece, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How you doing?
I'm great.
I'm so happy to have you in because you're an icon, you're a legend. We're friends off camera. I love, I'm a fan of the products that you and your hubby have
thank you.
created. Yeah, and I'm excited to get into all the things.
All right. Well, you're the driver of this ship, so let's see where you take us, Captain.
Well, I like to start with a big idea. So, given your legacy and everything that you currently are putting out into the world via your podcast, what would you say are the biggest lessons that sports have taught you about staying strong, mobile, and injury-free as you age?
Well, I don't know about the injury-free part. I think most people that do a lifetime of training or sport, you feel beat up a lot of days, most days. So it's more about learning how to do the workaround and trying to solve the problems as they show up or improve them, and training in a way that's smart so that you're not further damaging yourself. So I think it's a myth to think someone like me doesn't feel a little bit beat up.
Yeah, find what you love and let it kill you, on the one hand.
Yeah, well, we're not supposed to do all that repetitive motion. And so, but it's worth it. And you're just navigating it. I think if I had some of the information now that I had when I was younger, I would have avoided, for example, I have a knee replacement, some other things that were not really due to my sport, but actually due to either bad practices, bad mechanics, now they have things like prehab and rehab. And so I would have added some extra those boring little 10-minute drills that nobody wants to do. I would have added that because I think it would have kept me out of a lot more trouble. But I think some of the lessons I learned is that really first principle, you always feel better when you keep moving. So even when you feel pretty bad, you're always just going to feel better that you kept moving. Your blood, your muscles, your emotions. So that was one thing. And I guess it became a non-negotiable. So it's not something that's separate. I think a lot of people are like trying to figure out, how do I make this a lifestyle? And I think a lot of times when you come from sport, one of two things happens. You're tired of being told what to do and train, and then you stop. Or you figure out the way that you can continue on that makes sense for the life that you're living at that moment. And that changes year to year and decade to decade.
Yeah. If you could tell your younger self something, if you could change the way that they approached maybe their training or even their nutrition or their recovery, what would you say?
I wouldn't have carbo loaded. That's what we did in the 80s and 90s. I would have figured out how to use fat and protein more as a fuel source. I mean, you always want to be adaptable. You don't want to be precious. But I would have, if I had known, we didn't know, I would have spent more time doing thoughtful stretches that made sense we call it unwinding the wind. So where am I winding up in my sport? And so what are the things I can do to unwind? And then in the recovery part, it wouldn't have been like, it's a day off and I'm going to the movies. It would have been sort of an active recovery. So again, we didn't do saunas back then. Ice tubs, there was always icing, but there wasn't sort of using ice in that right way, just to help with inflammation that you don't want. Because obviously right after you train, you want that inflammation. So you wouldn't have used it there. And just some of the other tools, like the fact that there's people who know how to touch your tissue in a way so that you don't get into trouble later on, even though it's uncomfortable. We used massage therapy and all those types of things, but I think that field has also really progressed. So I would have participated more in my recovery and not just been like, okay, I have a day off.
How did you at the time balance? I don't even know if this was...
I love that word.
Yeah. Well, because there's so little balance typically when you're a professional.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, the demands on your body from the standpoint of sport, but also the aesthetic, because you were also very active with regards to your modeling career.
I had to contend with that when I was younger. Once I became a professional, I could sort of beef up all I wanted. But then you find, like, if you're playing beach volleyball, you want to have a lightness to you so that you can get out of the sand. You could feel that extra 3 to 5 pounds. So it only had to be muscle that improved performance, not, well, I'm just bigger because I bang iron. When I was in college is when I was doing the dual roles. And so I would be in New York 6 months of the year working. So like you're going to a studio, you're getting a face full of makeup, then you're coming home, it's dark in the city, you're scraping off your makeup and you're going into the gym. And already in fashion, I'm 6'3", they were like, you're so big. And then you go to volleyball and everyone's big and they're trying to eat your lunch. And so I think that I just did the best I could, but I always actually made volleyball really the secret priority, because you can't phone that in. And so when I would train, it was like, hey, listen, I'm training for something that means a lot to me, and I have to show up for my teammates. And if I'm a little bigger, they can deal with it.
Very interesting. Had you always known that your destiny was to be a professional athlete?
Not even close. I'm the most fall into things person for the first, let's say, 6 years of my career, let's call it. So I moved from the Caribbean. My junior year of high school, I was 15. I was already 6'3". And I had dibbled in volleyball, but nobody from where I came from that I knew went to college and played sports. It didn't even occur to me to go to college. But then I got moved to St. Petersburg, Florida. I went to a really small school. So all good athletes typically go to a bigger high school to be seen. So when I walked in, they normally didn't have athletes quite that tall. So that's really where I learned to play volleyball and basketball and got offers for both. So from my junior to senior year, so I would call back to my friends at home and be like, I'm going to college on a scholarship. And they were like, for what? And that's how I felt. And when I went to two-a-days, which is, athletes go to school and then they kind of load you up to get you ready for the season. And volleyball is the same time football is. So we're at two-a-days in August. And I always joke that if you looked at the group of freshmen, and there was 8 of us out of 12 on the team, so we had a big freshman class, so we had to play, you'd say, who might not make it? And I definitely would have been that person. And then I learned, I had a great coach, so I was really inspired. I love the game. It's so fun. I liked who I was in that environment, the working hard and doing it even when you don't want to do it, and learning to win, learning to lose, improving. I think that's actually the sexiest part for me about sport, is like, I couldn't do that, and now I can. That really is, I think that's for all of us, a proposition I think it fuels us in our whole life. Like, I could wake up today and be better at something. And I love that. And it gave me a family too. So then I got good in college. I always say I think I'm a good athlete. I don't know that I'm a great athlete. I think I'm a good athlete. And I think I'm very coachable. And so then I left college, moved to Miami because I didn't want to live full time in New York. And while I was in Miami, I picked up beach volleyball. After about a year and a half, I played with this woman who was great, but she had a real job. And she said, you should move to California and try to really play, because that's where beach volleyball was. And I was like, okay. And that's how it happened.
Wow. What would you say is the secret sauce to getting ahead in a high stakes, hyper competitive field? I mean, not everybody's going to be a competitive athlete, but you mentioned being really coachable, despite not having the perception that you were necessarily the best athlete. You said that you were like really coachable.
Yeah.
What are some other sort of secret, mindsets, tactics that might be attributed to your insane success?
I think you have to know who you are. And so let's use that in a more superficial way, like in sport. I did a few things very, very well. There were some other things I didn't do as well. So what I understood was, with this limited period of time, I could focus and work really hard at the things that I knew not only was I more naturally good at, but that I could make a real difference in that space, and then sort of lean on my teammates for the parts where I was weak. So that is I think a real understanding of like, who am I? And also your why. I think that passion, and I think discipline oftentimes can be born out of that passion of like, hey, I really want to be good at this. I will work extra. I will do more. I will get up earlier. I will go to bed later. I will defer to somebody to help me be better, even though I still don't know that it works, if that makes sense. So like a good coach will say, do this. And that moment to go, they have a lot more experience than me. I'll give it a try, but like a real try. And then just understanding, how do you make it better in each situation? So if people are in pursuit of something, even a business, it's like, well, what value can I bring? I think a lot of times we're looking at situations and we go, well, what can I get out of it? And in sport, the objective is to win. But there's a lot of things you need to do before that in order to make that happen. And if you can stay focused on those things, like, hey, being a good teammate, showing up to practice with a good attitude, always being willing to do the extra, then that leads you to the place of the goal versus putting the goal first and then just thinking it's sort of going to happen. So I think really knowing yourself and never avoiding the work. Because even if you're the most talented person or the most intelligent person, or you have the best idea, like in business, or it's always going to take work. And so when you get that relationship with, this is uncomfortable and I don't actually even want to do this, but I know I need to, so you take the emotion out and you just get back to work.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm picking up like radical honesty about your strengths, the willingness to delegate, to offload, maybe the parts, the tasks that you're not necessarily as skilled at.
Yeah.
Being able to take constructive feedback and implement it.
I think it's an interesting thing, though. It's sort of like you and I could have an argument, right? And let's say, I'm going to make this up. Let's say you're right. Can you believe I just said that? Let's say you're right. But within it, I have a point that's really valid. For you to grow and be better would be also to acknowledge my one little point against your 10 right points. And it could be the same with a coach. Maybe you don't even like your coach. I had an incredible coach who I respected, trusted very much. That makes it a lot easier. But let's say you're in a situation with a boss that you're like, this guy or this girl or whatever. But what if they have a point? What if they know something you don't? Are you able to peel out all the stuff and go, that feels valuable. That will help me be better. And having that skill to also not make everything personal or based on your feelings about where the information is coming from.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's crucially important. And that would alleviate so much of the tension that we're seeing today, right? Take any topic of conversation that's become politicized and polarized. Like, I think it's great advice to be able to steelman and be able to pick apart the kernel of truth, even in the,
Yes. When somebody said to me once, a long time ago, if you were that person, you would think, feel, and believe that and act like that. And I remember thinking that was a practical form almost of empathy, which really works for me. I happen to be, I think, I don't know if my husband or family would agree with that, but overall, I would say I'm a very practical, logical person. And so being able to build in that empathy constantly is also really helpful, because maybe it allows you to sidestep, because we all have biases, we all have feelings and opinions. And the other thing to be radically honest about too is your weaknesses. Not to be afraid or defensive about them, but be like, yeah, you know what, I can work on that. I think that's also incredibly helpful when you're in pursuit of anything or even in a personal relationship.
Yeah, crucially valuable. Had there ever been a point along the way at which point you had doubted yourself?
Oh, every day. And this whole notion of imposter syndrome I had all the way through pretty much my professional career. Because I was so late. I was one of the 2 players on the tour at one point, not from the California system, right? I went to Florida State. There was a woman named Denny Ganoop. She was the only other person from Florida. So I think that might be part and parcel for most people. I'm not sure. You just learn to have a relationship with it and be like, yeah, but is that helping me? And I have that, listen, in my business. I have that as a parent, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that's what the deal is. I don't think it's about knowing. Certain things you learn to know to be true, right? But I think most times especially when we're branching out and trying new things or meeting new people or expressing ourselves in new ways, there's always that feeling of like, I don't really know. And maybe it is that like I feel like I'm faking it a little.
I can't believe that you felt a sense of imposter syndrome, of all people.
It's interesting. I never felt like I was fooling anybody about who I was as a human being. I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm pretty congruent. Like if you came to my house right now and had dinner, you'd see the same person. If you see me in the gym, I'm just a different version of this same person. So that part was clear. And maybe that's the thing, is all these environments are set up to give us opportunities to really know ourselves and to improve upon, right? Like to go, well, how about this? You have a trait that works really, really well in one area of your life. And then all of a sudden, kind of in this other area that feels important, that same trait only takes you so far. And you have to really take a look at that. But yeah, anyone who says they know about, like they never feel unsure, I don't know that you're conscious then.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's rare. I think if you're doing anything novel, you're bound to have a sense of imposter syndrome. If you're doing anything significant in this world, especially something that hasn't been done before, yeah, you're bound to feel that. And I think you just got to press through it.
Yeah, and we're all learning as we go. So even a scientist or a doctor or anyone, but what's cool is like, let's take an experienced coach, because coaches are interesting, right? When they put in systems in place and they see tons of different personalities in athletes, they'll start to see things that show up to be true. Like this seems really to work depending on even every scenario. And I think that only comes through experience.
You wear so many hats. I mean, professional athlete, model, businesswoman, mother, wife. How do you know when it's time to pivot versus double down?
In which way?
In any endeavor. Like, I'm sure, because the path to success is not linear, right? Any person who's achieved any degree of success in any realm in life, I mean, usually that journey is rife with failures.
Yeah.
I could share in my own life. I mean, there have been projects that have tried to get off the ground that have been impossibly difficult, and there have been other projects that never made it off the ground.
Yeah. But those ones that don't make it off the ground weren't supposed to. They gave you the lessons for the ones that did. And one thing I know is I don't typically double down in my personal relationships unless it's the love part. You don't lean in necessarily to your family. I don't, if I have a belief and I have a child has a different belief, I don't double down. I really share honestly my thoughts or, if I'm asked, excuse me, my feelings about it. But doubling down, unless you're just doubling down and like, hey, I'm here and I love you and I'm here to work it out, it usually seems to be, for me anyway, a better strategy. When it comes to business, the only thing I double down on is if it is, for example, if it's the food business, I always double down on ingredients. But everything else, you go, hey, well, let's take a look at that. If, let's say they want to do something and it doesn't feel like my voice or Laird's voice, I double down because that's part of our values. And I think that doubling down in your values without being, you don't have to be combative about it, but you're like, hey, this is just a non-negotiable because this is not authentic to me, or this ingredient isn't going to work for this brand. So it takes a lot for me to double down, and it's usually really clear and really, these are on the simple things in place. And the rest is to stay curious and to go, well, let me hear your side.
Yeah. What habits or routines would you say have contributed most to your success?
I learned a long time ago to take my feelings out of whatever needed to get done, because oftentimes when you get up in the morning and you're in bed, it can feel overwhelming. I think for all of us, like, oh, I'm going to get all this done today, especially throwing some children and, dinner's got to somehow get made at the end of the day, all these things, is to go, okay, who am I? What am I trying to do? What are my goals? What are the traits of the person who's going to show up and do that? And I actually lean into that versus I don't feel all these things today. I don't feel like it. I don't feel inspired. I don't really want to train. I don't even want to be nice to my family today.
That's
I have
real.
that feeling a lot.
It's real,
yes. Yeah. I'm an only child, and I joke. I'm like, who are all these people in my house? I'm like, oh my God, it's my family. And then I go, yeah. But that's not going to get me where I know I really want to go. And I've done that formula enough times. Sport really was helpful with that, to trust the formula and to say, okay, that's great. You're allowed, be honest, call your one best girlfriend and go, today I feel like, fire blasting every single person I know. And then you go, haha, back to work, back to whatever principles you're living by. And I try really hard to stay to the loving, to the positive, to the direct. That doesn't mean doormat. That doesn't mean clear communicator. That doesn't mean I can't throw up a boundary, but it's still done tonally in that way.
Yeah, I always say that inspiration and motivation are fair weather friends. You can't rely on them.
No.
Because they're fleeting, and they're not always going to be there for you.
Yeah.
But it's discipline. It's being able to take the reins of your destiny and just show up. Sometimes it's all it takes.
Yeah, and I know can be hard. Like I have friends. I have a friend, Nancy. I'll just say her name because I'm not going to say anything bad about her. She'll say, well, you're really, like, you're not emotionally sort of centered. Like, you're not a person who comes from their emotions. And I'm thinking, yes and no. But I think what happens is I try to connect my brain with my heart so I understand what it is my heart really wants. And then sometimes I defer to my brain to go, okay, now we got to put this operating system in place. And what's the strategy? What's your practice for that to happen? And let's get to work. And then at the end of the day, I can check back in with my heart and go, did that go the right way? Should you have said something different here? Does something else? Do you want to adjust and change? And then the next day sort of look at that and say, okay, well, we're going to modify this over here.
What does aging well mean to you? I mean, I'm now in my early 40s, and well past is the sense of invincibility that I had in my youth. I
don't feel like that. I feel like it feels like somebody. I have a friend like this where I always say the angels came when you were born and whispered in your ear, like, it's going to be okay.
For me?
Yeah, you have that vibe about you, which is like, hey guys, okay.
I appreciate that. No, I mean, I definitely have a youthful, my energy, my lifestyle, my proclivities, I feel it mentally. I certainly feel it emotionally, which has led to strife in my romantic relationships.
I bet.
But no, physically, I mean, I've racked up some injuries. I mean, you said you had a knee replacement?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an artificial disc in my spine,
From what?
in my lumbar. I had a chronic low back pain attributed to a severely degenerated L5S1 disc. And so I had about 7 months ago, they opened me up from the front and they went in and they replaced the disc that I had, which was severely diseased, and it was causing severe pain for me. And so I have this this mechanical.
Isn't that incredible?
It's insane. It's insane. Because I mean, fusion is still the most common way to treat something like that, and I didn't want to get fused.
No, smart.
Yeah, so I got an artificial disc, and it's changed my life. But it's along with that, the chronic pain that I had for 10 years is the sense that like this body is not invincible.
Yeah.
We got to take care of our bodies.
I believe, for me personally, and I think I know a lot of athletes like this. Most athletes have had an injury, and the deeper you've played, okay, high school athlete, college athlete, and so forth, everyone's had an injury. And I've had injuries where you're strategizing how to get off the toilet. And if somebody said there's a fire, you'd be like, I can't go anymore, right? So I learned really early, this is a real gift, feeling good. So that also makes the practice a lot easier. It makes the motivation come a lot easier because I don't need to be broken or go to the doctor one day and they go, hey, you got some serious issues you got to deal with. Don't you want to play with your children or grandchildren? And so, you say about living well, it's being able to do all the things forever. So that's why also when you say the word forever, you back that into your strategy about what you're doing so that you aren't doing things, how do I get gains without crushing myself in a way that I could really only do this probably to 65 or 70. And so that is kind of how I approach the idea of living well, but also like staying curious and continuing to dream and continuing to say like, well, what new endeavors would I like to take on so that my life has new interests in it and I'm still inspired just by my own life, not the roles, because we get bogged down in the roles like, oh, I'm someone's parent, I'm a CEO, I'm a partner, but versus I'm this human being and I'm also waking up today because I have things that I'm enjoying and that I'm turned on by and that I kind of want to conquer. And so for me, living well in age, that element is really big for me.
And how does that show up in terms of your nutrition, your training these days?
My training's pretty hard. I think it's hard. And but that's because I've moved up, I've gotten to that level, and it's the level I need to be at also to see progress or to maintain, because that if you can maintain, that's even pretty good. And it's the one that like I earn it. It's the most like one of the more honest things I can do. And so, but again, in that strategy are things of like, hey, those movements I could do for like 3 months and then I'm going to pay. So I got to look at that and say, is it worth it? And maybe it's worth it once in a while, just so I know I can do it. Or, certain kinds of sprinting or certain explosive moves, they're essential, but how do I sprinkle them throughout so that I still can do it? And on the food side, it's really simple for me. I just eat real food. I eat when I'm hungry. I am aware of kind of the overall amount of protein and fat, and do I feel full and satisfied? I am a big believer in a good carbohydrate at night before I go to sleep. But there have been tons of nights I don't, and it was just sort of animal protein and fat, yeah. And I'm not a huge snacker, and if I am snacking, it's usually because I'm stressed or I didn't eat enough at the meal prior. And I don't drink alcohol. I might have a hard kombucha now and again, get crazy. But
those are good.
I like them. And at the end of the day, when you want to kill everybody, you're just like, no problem. So I think it's a pretty simple practice. I go to bed at the same time. We never give sleep enough credit. I'm not a great sleeper. I have never been a great sleeper. And so that's the thing. I'm always like going, hey, how can I manage so I can get that recovery and show up the next day, not only physically, but certainly emotionally. So I have a very simple, unneurotic, I don't put a lot of stress around it. But if I'm traveling, let's say, and I'm hungry and I'm at the airport, I might look around and go, there's nothing for me here. So I just don't. Or I find the sort of least offensive thing I can put into my body. And it's just really clear. Like, I'll see all the stuff around and I'm like, oh yeah, that's not even food. Like, it doesn't even register to me at this point as food. So that makes it a lot easier. But it's been years.
Yeah, it's so true. Like walking through the aisles of a typical supermarket, it's like this stuff isn't even, it's like noise. It's just like background noise.
Yeah, I'm like, that's pretty packaging. Yeah, I don't even, my eyes don't look at it and go, oh. So I think that's helpful. And I always want to encourage people that, like, if you just did it for a bit, it does get so much easier because you can feel how good you feel. And so you go, oh, I know what that makes me feel like. But by the way, I went out to dinner the other night with my friend and we were at this Italian place and I had it's a little tiny little butter cake, Italian butter cake with gelato. Yeah, I had half of it and I loved every minute of it. So again, not putting stress around things, and I can eat anything I want. I just am choosing the things that go back to that original thought when I get up, which is all the things that I need to be doing, my friendships, all of it. Does it feed into where I'm trying to go?
Do you have an overarching like nutrition philosophy? How much of your consciousness does nutrition occupy?
Very little.
Very
at
little.
This point. Yeah. I mean, I eat animal protein. I get it shipped to my house most times. If I'm out or traveling, I eat what's there. I tend to avoid chicken unless I
just don't like it.
If you really learn how most chicken, even the good stuff, it can be sketchy. When they talk about bleaching the skin and fecal matter, it's just like they go on. If you ever talk to somebody who deals with chicken, and I don't even mean like mass farm chicken, I'm just talking about like chicken in general.
Whoa.
So I tend to avoid chicken unless someone I know it was their chicken, sure. But if that's the only food available, I'll eat it and have no problem with it. So I kind of look at protein as the thing that works really well for me. And it also lends itself to me eating a lot less. And then, some fiber, you got to have it. I try not to eat that too much at the end of the day. And I don't really think about it so much.
Yeah. No, I like that. There's this, on social media, there's this pressure, I think, I was going to say for women, but it's actually for men and women. I mean, there's so much body dysmorphia today and, these hyper idealistic body standards that are promoted by the algorithms. And I think it's led a lot of people to, approaching their diets and their lifestyles with this orthorexic energy, which I don't think is good.
I think not everybody, I think a lot of people are selling something. So they find a message, they lock and load, and they just keep hammering down on that message. So whether it's you need this much protein, you need to have the creatine, you need to have, and all these things are good. I use them as North Stars. And I've been saying lately in the last 6 months about heading that way. I think a lot of people feel this pressure, like I'm supposed to hit every bullseye. And I am of the belief, just keep heading that way. Just try to get your protein. Do the best you can. Try, if you feel good and you've read enough stuff about creatine, try to get it in there. Your vitamin D, probably pretty important. Get it in there when you can. But the more relaxed I can stay, the more fluid I move through that stuff. But I can watch social media like a movie. I don't get hooked into that. If it's 11 o'clock at night, the only time I can get caught is in a beauty product. Like, that's going to fix it. So that catches me once in a while for sure. But otherwise, I encourage people, if they don't know, actually the best thing we could do is take away the things that are not making us successful, not add now 17 new things that we have to feel guilty about that we're not doing. So what are the things actually in your life? Because we know, going back to being honest with ourselves, hey, maybe I should cut back on this, or I could stop doing that. And I actually encourage people to start there And then it's like, hey, I haven't moved in a long time. Banging iron looks a little too much. Great, can you start walking? And sort of have this realistic approach to creating the practice so you can stick to it. And if you blow it one day, go like, you know what, that wasn't best. Tomorrow, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I love the, we provide templates, I think, as educators, but and a sense of heuristics that people can borrow, use, take it or leave it, to improve their lives. But yeah, I think it's just doing the best that you can in any given moment.
Yeah. Dan Garner, he's a nutritionist, really, really talented. He works with Andy Galpin. And I quote this a lot. Dan Garner was giving a lecture that I was sitting in, and he said, listen, if you come across anyone and they talk about anything, nutrition, movement, in absolutes, he said, run the other way.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. And I would tend to consume information from someone like that more than I would from someone else. However, I have learned that people do like to be told what to do. And that, for me, I don't like to be told what to do. And so I also honor that some people need to go, these 5 things, these 10 ways, these 3 best exercises. Somehow that their brain goes, oh, okay, they're telling me what to do. So if that gets you to a better practice, great, whatever, like communication skills. But the thing that I feel is so important right now is take off your wearables. Don't rely on them to tell you, how did I sleep? Do I feel rested? How did that food? How about we go back inside and go, when I eat X, I feel, Y. Now, if you're just starting out and this gives you a new understanding, a new sensitivity, you can gamify it. You go, oh, wow, when I ate popcorn, my glucose did this or that. Okay, until you gain that sensitivity. But I think I prefer the idea of moving to a practice, though, that you know how you feel, how someone makes you feel. How's this job? Is this the right job? Am I hiring this person? Does that make sense? Because we farmed out everything to everybody else, and then now it's supposed to be our life. And so this goes back to knowing yourself and really asking yourself, taking the time and effort to go, well, what would work for me? If a girl goes to a nail salon, she doesn't go to the guy, whatever color you pick. It's like, no, based on my lifestyle and the things I'm going to be wearing in my work, I need this color. And I think we're at a place now where we've disconnected from our deep inner wisdom, which is real, and it makes mistakes. My inner wisdom makes mistakes all the time, or it doesn't, and I didn't listen to it, but I'm reminded why I want to. Yeah.
We've relegated our intuition in so many ways to being just an afterthought.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways we're kind of taught to do that,
school.
Defer to the devices or the experts or the screens or whatever.
Yeah. Well, school starts with sit down, show up at this time, sit down, be quiet, stand in line, get in order. And I love the idea of what are the big principles? What are the big rules for you that feel important? And then question everything. Because in this day and age, I think that is a really, sovereignty is such an important trait. I've raised my children like this, and it is very annoying because then they push back on us as parents. But then when I set them off into the world, I feel really comfortable that they're going to navigate, because they're going to ask, well, wait, just because you look like an authority, I'm not going to just take your word for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent. I would love to hear you, speak more to this. But
that's why you look so relaxed and rested.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, wait, buddy, wait.
But I think it's really important to have a respect for authority, but not to fear questioning authority, and to not be a blind faith leader or follower, rather, of authority. I think Malcolm Gladwell talked about this in his book Outliers, and I read it a long time ago. So, my memory of the book is not perfect, but it's like, you got to always be willing to question authority. I hate this authority worship that we seem to see today on social media and in the culture at large. Yeah,
that's why reciprocity and sovereignty are 2 of my most favorite words. And we are members of a civilization, right? We're in agreement here. We're sort of stopping at red lights and, hey, we're going through the same doorway. No, you go first. So the other part of that could be, well, this is not in conflict with me as a person. And if I do it this way, I'm a better member of our society. You know, you could help someone out. You could, you go, like whatever that is. I think that is, as far as looking at authority, it's like, how do I make all of this flow better and be a part of it? And then if someone is an expert at something, I'll listen to what they have to say for sure. But I'm not going to be like, well, that's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, there's it's kind of a tale as old as time that law and authority are not necessarily coupled to morality. And one of my favorite works to clearly illustrate this is Les Miserables, where Jean Valjean, he was sent to prison for decades for stealing a loaf of bread for his hungry family.
Yeah.
So legally, obviously that was wrong, right? And the whole story is basically about this, you know, these opposing views of like what the law says is right and what is morally and ethically right.
Yeah. But now we don't agree so much even on that anymore. And so I think being clear with yourself, being honest with yourself, having people in your life that will also say, hey, not great, right? Not everybody who thinks the same, but people that think differently than you who are also willing to say to you, I want to point this out. I think sometimes is a better way to kind of meander through your life than just sort of saying, well, this is right and this is wrong. We know that telling the truth is better than lying. I feel like we can all agree on that. I feel like helping somebody versus walking by, these types of things feel pretty universal. And then there's so much left up for interpretation.
Yeah, amen. So you have sleep problems, you have sleep troubles.
Yeah, I'm a mind grinder.
What's a mind grinder?
It's like I'm trying to work it out all in the middle of the night, and all of my personal, and listen, they'll even talk about as you get older, if your progesterone's low, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, pretty consistently you wake up in like the panic of your life. And that's a hormone deal. And so even, you don't know this because you're a guy, but even as a female who's had their cycle for so many years, there are days where you're like, I don't actually think this is how I'm feeling. I think my hormones something's happening. And so for me in my sleep, sometimes I'll be like, is this real? It's like that Byron Katie, is it true? And it's usually not. So I just try to breathe really deep and get back to sleep, because I save all of my kind of worrying, if you will, for that time, because I don't let it during the day. And so it all kind of shows up at night.
Wow. Have you found any effective solutions for that? Any tools that have helped?
Well, I definitely love the idea of physical activity so that I'm somewhat tired. That's been very helpful. My food, eating foods that support kind of an ability to just kind of rest, and then breathing. I will use very long, slow inhales. If your exhales are longer than your inhales, you will downregulate. So then rather than leaving it up to my mind to be like, I've got to relax, I have to get to bed, it's 3 a.m, I just go, okay, in 5 seconds, out 7 seconds, in 6, out 8, whatever I got. And I usually can go back to sleep.
And that helps.
It does. And again, asking myself, is any of this true that you're feeling? Or are you thinking about the future using a reference of the past? And so this is just stuff you're making up in your mind. And giving myself the opportunity to have that feeling, and then to be like, okay, what do you want? Is this serving you? And is there anything you can do about it right now? Okay, go to bed.
When I mind grind.
You mind grind?
Well, not all the time, but occasionally I do. I find weed helps a lot.
Really?
Like a little low-dose gummy.
I took edibles before for sleep. I started that in my 40s. It was an amazing invention because it was measured. I'm not a smoke, I didn't smoke weed. I grew up in the Caribbean. There was weed everywhere, and I was just like, whoa. It feels more like but people love smoking it because it's fast and it's over, versus an edible sometimes is a different commitment.
Yeah.
But I definitely discovered edibles, a light dose for sleep in my 40s, which was great.
Yeah, it's great. I take like a 2.5 milligrams of THC, CBD, CBN.
Yes, that's important what you just said, the CBN.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know much about weed other than the fact that I wake up feeling great, like there's no hangover, and I take it right before I go to sleep because I don't like being.
You know, I'm going to be goofy.
No, well, I don't like I actually don't like what weed does to my consciousness, but it seems to be very effective for sleep for me.
Do you think it's just an extension, though, of your consciousness? And you just maybe take a break, like you take the handbrake off, or it gives you permission to kind of just look at it from a different point of view?
Maybe.
Because sometimes I didn't take it right before bed, and I still interact with the people on my counter, and I'm like, wow, this is way more fun, you know?
I've never had that feeling. No, for me, it screws with my self-talk. It just makes my self-talk like, it's just, it always goes negative. Not like dark
like
negative.
Paranoid, or
like paranoid, like I just don't like it. And there are other mind-altering substances that I will enjoy occasionally, but weed is not one of them.
Yeah.
But it is very effective for me for sleep for some reason.
It is good. And if you do it too early before bed, you might hit that snack drawer too. I've noticed that.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah. All of a sudden, do I really need that handful of whatever? I don't.
Right. You have, on top of your own iconic backstory, I mean, you've got one of the most iconic relationships. It's like a Hollywood relationship that's actually endured the test of time, which is fairly rare in these parts.
Yeah. Well,
any
it'll
secrets?
be 30 years in November.
That's incredible.
Together.
You guys have a business together. It's kind of amazing. What are secrets?
Well, I did hear Tony Robbins say something that I really appreciated about what high percentage was your choice, who you chose. So let's start there. Let's start that I'm not that smart, and I just had an instinct, and I feel, I won't speak for Laird, but I feel like he had an instinct as well. It didn't make sense mathematically, like if you wrote it on paper, it didn't make sense. But the inside of me was like, oh, wait a second, this is my guy. And of course, we had to almost get divorced. Certainly one time. There was maybe 2 times we could have been divorced. And it was Laird who taught me about, like, we went through this whole rigmarole when I was 30 because I was scared. I was scared to be vulnerable. I was scared to risk. I didn't grow up that way. And so I remember we went through this whole thing. We almost got divorced. Then we said, okay, we're going to give it a go. And so I told myself I wouldn't hold back any longer, and I would say what I really felt or wanted. And I remember having this conversation with Laird, and I said, when you do this and that, and it makes me feel like this. And then he said to me, well, why didn't you say anything? And I thought, oh, it's important. But so it's the choice first. I think if we were not together, we would probably live pretty similarly to how we're living as we are together. So there's some values. Laird grew up in Hawaii. I grew up in the Caribbean. So we were raised also in different ways pretty similarly. How we get there is very different. And I think we have some interesting balance of Laird is all heart and an instinct and unafraid and sort of really loving. And I have other traits that also balance him out, that I think we help each other. And I always tell my daughters, listen, there's only one relationship I never ask, what am I getting? And it's with my children. Every relationship, whether I'm working with somebody, a friendship, my husband, even if they inspire me. So it's this idea, and people maybe don't like to hear it. I think both Laird and I have this attitude of, how could I make your life better? And so when each person is doing that, what you're doing is you're creating a value to one another that also can fuel the relationships when you're kind of over it. Like, you've been together, you're traveling together, working together. and you want to just kind of be alone and be quiet, and there you are in the same hotel room, but you think, but man, this person, it's like they have all these traits that I admire and respect. And if you really get mean in yourself, like the ruthless part of yourself, you go, yeah, my life's better with them. And I know that is harsh, but I think it is helpful when you get into those moments of like, why are we doing this? It's like, well, because actually you're better with them.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, every relationship pretty much is transactional with the exception of those that are unconditional, and those are far and few in between.
The one I have found is with my children. And I do enter all of my relationships with the objective of, I'm here to serve you. I'm here, if I can see that you need something or want something, I'm just going to do it. It's easy. It's so easy. But I'm not going to do that forever if you yourself aren't in your way, whatever that is, not the way I tell you to, bringing something to the table. And I think, because I think the other might be foolish. Even if the other person always helps you see it from the positive side. And I joke often with Laird, he has a lot of energy. And I always say a lot of times I tuck in behind and I draft off Laird's energy. When you say, how do you get all this done? Some of it I'm drafting behind this energy that Laird creates, and also he takes things off my plate that he's so much better at. So I go, okay, I'm focused on this over here. So I think that's part of being in a tribe when you talk about that transactional, but it doesn't always have to mean, that doesn't have to be a negative thing.
Do you guys have any rituals as a couple that help to foster the strength of the relationship?
We do. I think they're unintentional, so it's not like date night Monday. That's not always so realistic for
Pool
us.
workouts?
Well, I mean, we're around each other in there, but it's sort of like, and it's in pool, it's like Laird's out there first, and I go, oh, he's out there, I got to get out there. So
is that his thing, or is that like a...
No, that's our thing. Like when we teach, I teach pool, because I always tell people, listen, I'm the weak link of the two of us in the pool. So I can tell you all the ways to make it easier. For
people who are unfamiliar, you guys are kind of known, at least in LA, in these parts, for these really intense pool workouts that you guys do. You host people in your own pool.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we open up our pool a few days a week when we're in town, and our friends who know how to train, they know the hours. They can just come in whenever they want and do their thing. And we train a lot with athletes. We'll do events. That's different because then we're only coaching. We're not training. For example, I had a gentleman yesterday who played in the NFL, retired, and I taught him how to swim. So it wasn't even so drastic. He was in 3 feet of water. The thing I get when I see somebody who's like, I've never done that before, is so exciting, especially when you're talking about a relationship with water. To get somebody who is afraid of water, who can go into water and feel the beauty of water, there's nothing better. So that's why I teach it, because I go, listen, I've made this mistake. I'm trying to keep up with all these people here. I can tell you how to do it efficiently. And so that's been over sort of the last 17 years. And the other ritual we have is actually every morning, Laird's up first. And when we're in town at the same time, we sit at our counter and have coffee together. And that's not a plug. That's where we just talk as two people and check in with each other. And then the obvious practice is we make sure to keep our romantic life, our male, female, our sex, like that's something that you realize, for the sake of the whole house and for each individual's needs, it's a really important thing.
Do you find that often gets relegated, at least in other relationships?
I think it's easy to. But I would like to put framework around it, though. Laird and I have a different schedule. We're entrepreneurs, so we have this luxury of being able to carve out weird windows of time to sneak away. So if you have two people going to a 9 to 5 and then coming home to children they haven't seen, that they want to spend time with, that they want to be of service to, then you're supposed to be alone when at the end of the night, when you're dead ass tired in your bed. That's hard. But what I will say is, it doesn't really take that long. And it doesn't have to be fireworks, right? It doesn't have to be like we did 75 moves. It could just be
the whole Kama Sutra.
Yeah, we could be together. And so I think it's not that it gets relegated out. I think it's so easy how you could understand that it kind of falls away, and then nobody knows how to restart the conversation of their sex life. I think it can be a tricky dance.
Yeah. No, sex is super important.
Yeah,
Foundational.
says the single guy.
Says the single guy.
But I mean, add it like you've never had a newborn. People trying to, when they hand you a new baby, and then if you're the woman, and you think to yourself, wait, we're supposed to have sex again? It can be daunting. And just slowly how you integrate, again, it doesn't have to be the full Monty. Maybe it's certain parts of your sex life. Slowly, as you're healing and your baby maybe sleeps a little more, you find a new rhythm.
Do you have kids in the house? Or
I just took my youngest daughter to college. My middle daughter floats in and out. She also works with us. So I have no kids. I have young adult badass women.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I can close the door.
Yeah.
I don't need to explain myself. When they were little, my youngest, who's a pretty precocious person, said to me at like 6, well, I don't get it. You and Dad say like, oh, you need alone time. But when I'm alone, I'm by myself. But when you're alone, you guys are together. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I used to say things like, do you want Christmas in 2 houses? Like, this is what we're doing.
I'll tell you the full story when you turn 18.
Yeah, I think they know it long before that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Very interesting. What's one lie about aging well that you wish would just die already?
A lie? Well, just that you're not going to age. It's like I'm 55 years old. Like, it's what a gift. I'm still here, and I probably don't look the way I looked when I was 25. And so maybe it's not the lie. Maybe it's this weird silent expectation that we're supposed to be the way we've always been, versus redefining of, well, how strong could I be today? How could I be my best today? And that goes back to putting the reins in your own hand. Because I can look like everybody else at filtered images, or people doing all these things, and go, oof, I should do something here. I was joking about my friend who does facelifts downstairs. But I think the other lie that's hard is like, oh, we have less value as we get older, versus how could I take my experience and my greater capacity to listen, to be loving, to be a person who could offer something for somebody younger? And how do I expand my value? Because when you're younger, it should be about you, building your life, understanding yourself, and doing all that. And then as you get older, it's like you can do that plate spinning and this opportunity to really try to be better for more people. And I think that gives you a real sense of worth, versus, hey, I'm not getting whistled at when I walk down the street anymore. So it's not that it's a lie. It's just we don't expand on that nuanced part of being somebody who can mean so much to the people in our lives, but having, again, that selfish pursuit. Because what I think we get a lot of frustration is people, we're of service to everybody, but then we didn't have our own thing too. And it makes it a lot easier when we are still in pursuit ourselves. Because if your kid doesn't call you for 3 days, you're not like, oh, she doesn't call me. It's like, yeah, she's busy. I got this thing I'm doing.
Yeah, but I do think that's one of the beautiful things about having kids, said as somebody who doesn't have them, is that there's probably a beauty to being saved from yourself. Like all I need to think about on a day-to-day basis is myself and making sure that my cat is fed.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
But that's this time in your life. And that's why wherever people are at, even if it's divorced, chose not to be married, or it didn't happen, or whatever, it's like, what's the coolest, best thing about this time in your life and what you're doing, and how do I maximize that? Because that will change. And so then what will be that next set of, because things are always changing and falling away and adding. So I think, yes, children, I remember when someone, people always say, oh, they're the greatest teachers, and you're like thinking, yeah, right. And then you learn. Because what they do is they keep you connected to the world as it is today versus the world that you grew up in. And so they are teaching you and adding to your own landscape about, well, the way the world works, the way my belief system. I used to think of it this way, but maybe I'm going to alter it that way. I used to do this, now I do that. So kids are also a great teacher because you're inspired to be better for them, or they will also try to beat you into it, which they do, one way or the other. And so they're a lot of work, and it's the greatest if people choose that opportunity to be different. Because me in an echo chamber, I always said, listen, I could write the books if I lived in a yurt by myself on the hill. I would be so brilliant. Now I just don't know anything. And that comes from living a messy life.
Yeah, a messy life, but an admirable one, an aspirational one, an iconic one.
I don't know that it's all those things. If my life and our life, if nothing else, it's both Laird and I, and I've talked about this before, we're wickedly selfish also, separate from one another. So I think what happens is we are taking care of doing the things that we know we need to do to kind of be okay ourselves, and then work out from there. And what happens is a lot of the things we're doing just seem to line up with who we are. So anyone can do that.
Do you mean like self-care?
Not only self-care, but the pursuits. So you're in touch constantly with your voice, because you're asking yourself, what do I want? What do I like? What do I need? And then it just goes on from there, instead of, I'm going to follow the rules. I'm going to do what I'm told, because that's what happens to a lot of people, right? We're going to do this, then you do that, then you meet someone, then you get that, and it's like, wait a second. This life, it is my life, but it's not the life fully that reflects me. And that doesn't mean there's not tons of compromise, because there is. But it's still a reflection of something deep inside me. So even in my partnership, or my relationship with my children, for the most part. And so maybe that is the thing people sense more than, well, you've been together that many years, or you got to do all these things. It's like, yeah, but that's not really what's behind it.
Well, it's definitely a model for, I think in many ways, successful, aging well. It's a model for being successful in partnership, in relationship. And yeah, I think whatever that secret sauce is, you clearly got it.
Well, I think being raised maybe with a loose, we used to joke, it's like almost a form of neglect. You get to build, nobody sort of told you what to think or how to do it. And so maybe that was easier, because I didn't have to unlearn that to then ask myself, okay, what do I want to do? Because when you have good parents, let's say, just by nature of caring what they think, we sort of, it impacts what we do. And so my hope, at least for my own children, is, hey, what's good about what your dad and I do, take that and like just do your own thing. And that's my hope, is by us being together and trying to be there for the girls and doing all these things, but it doesn't put a weird pressure on them that they have to do it a certain way.
Yeah. What's the term for parental like overreach? Is it helicopter parenting? Is that the term for it? Or
yeah, but I don't even think it's just that. I think what happens is, if you have two parents that you love and you get the idea that they put effort, you can't but help use that as a reflection of, well, would they approve of this? And I'm hoping that my girls approve first themselves. Well, do you approve? Do you respect that? Does that work for you? And I think those are the real most important questions, so that you don't do that when you're 60.
Self-love.
Yeah, and your own definition of success. Because the world is telling us a lot of things, like, oh, you need this much money, and you got to drive in that car, and you got to look like that, and all these things. It's like, no, what is your definition of success. And I can tell you, I'm so happy and grateful for all the things I got to do, but it's actually my relationships. If I really think about it, it's my relationships that are the most important to me.
Well, that's what they say is key to living long and healthily. Maybe more important than any other variable is the strength and the quality of our relationships.
Yeah, but it takes a different kind of work. It's quiet. You don't get a paycheck. You barely get it right. It's such an ongoing thing. So it's a different pursuit. It is a little bit different. And going back to, I still don't do things, of course, except for my children, at the cost of myself. And so if things are infringing on me in a way that over a long period of time are not going to be good for me, I won't be in those dynamics.
Yeah. Even when your children are involved.
Well, it depends. Like sometimes if they're doing a certain thing, and again, now they're young adults, I might be like, this is pretty uncomfortable and they're going to have to work it out. I'm not going to solve this for them. I love them and I'm going to be here just like that.
Yeah.
But
it's like boundaries.
It's kind of on them at this point. I mean, if they're 5, you're not doing that. But as they grow, it's like, ooh, this is, and I've said this certainly to my children, definitely specifically one more than anyone else. Hey, life, if I'm trying to share something with you, and if you don't think it's valuable or important to you right now, I do need you to give you the heads up that life is going to show you. And so at least you sort of go like, you've been warned.
Life is going to show you.
Life is going to show you. We say that, you get away with nothing. And that's the other kind of internal compass. We don't get away with anything. And so I'm not trying to get away with anything.
Yeah, my dad used to say everybody pays their tab at some point.
And I don't want to pay it like in a hospital bed.
No.
Or like, I'm sorry, it's like, I'll apologize along the way. That's fine. I'll do the work every day because I'd rather just pay up front.
Well, you choose your hard.
That's true. And well, and sometimes you don't. Man, sometimes you get some zingers that you're like, whew. And you buckle up and you just do the best you can because you don't have the answers and you're learning as you're going. I've been flipped upside down many times, especially as a parent, for sure. That's why training's so easy.
Yeah, amen. Well, it's been so fun getting to know you, Gabby Reece.
Oh, well, thank you. I will say also magnesium helps before sleep. I want to add that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to forget that.
No.
Yeah.
What is there a specific form or?
I like liposomal supplements as much as I can, and so I really, that seems to help relax and help me with my sleep too.
Cool.
If you don't want to be stony.
No, yeah. I do that. I take magnesium L3 and 8 in a little liposomal. Live On Labs makes these little disgusting packets, but they're very effective. So I squeeze them into my mouth.
Oh yeah, those are tough.
Yeah. Yep. Or you could like drop them into water. They're gross, but they're.
Yeah. There's some other brands that do a good job too.
Yeah.
I think so.
But liposomal is cool because it like bypasses, I don't know, traditional oral absorption routes that most like oral supplements falter at.
That's right. How much do you think your show will change if you have a family?
That's a good question. Probably a fair amount. Once I start, once I have like another human mouth to feed, another human that, whose responsibility to stay alive falls on my shoulders, I will probably, be spending a lot more time in that world of like parenting. And I will say that my little brother has 2 children, 2 little babies.
You've got practice. You're lucky. You can be an uncle.
A little bit. I'm an uncle. I've got 2 nieces, and they are terrors.
Yeah.
They are absolute nightmares. They are adorable, and they share genetics with me, and they are part of my brother. So by extension, I love them. But they are absolute nightmares to be around. Said as lovingly as I possibly can, while still acknowledging the the impact on my sanity that it has.
Yeah, you have to remember parenting is different too, because when they're yours, like you're the buck stops at you, and also you progress slowly into it. When you go to visit, it's just like you open the door and it's like chaos or whatever.
Yeah.
You get broken in.
I step
to
on
that
weird
stage.
things on the
Oh, yeah.
floor. I sit on a couch and there's like all kinds of sticky goos, and I smell my hand. I'm like, what the hell was that? It's constant screaming, food everywhere.
I know. And it's really beautiful too. And it's chaos. But you do get broken into it. Okay, I know we're at the end, but I want to ask you one last question.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the world is at a really, maybe it's at an interesting time. Maybe we're being sold that it's an interesting, I don't know how much of which is which. You know how like everything gets amplified because the loudest voices puncture through?
Yeah.
And for you as a man, a younger man who is going to be building a life, if you choose that kind of life, are you hopeful for the future?
I am prone to nihilism, pessimism. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I am hopeful. Yes, I think my optimism tends to beat out my more pessimistic nature, because I've just seen the good in real life of humanity in real life.
But that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
In real life.
In real life, yeah. If your only lens of humanity is by way of your screen, social media, legacy media, it doesn't leave much room for optimism, because of the toxicity across the board of our social channels, which isn't to say that social media can't be used for good. It absolutely can.
Right.
But
do you have a trick when you feel like you're doing a nosedive? I'm just curious because I so wonder what your group and younger has to navigate, and what are going to be the tools that have to get built to be able to think, optimistically, hopefully, about not only the life that you would like to build, but being a part of sort of the greater world.
Well, I think we are becoming more tribalistic in nature, thanks to social media. I think social media does a great job of fomenting echo chambers, and that's a bad thing. But it also allows communities to coalesce of like-minded individuals, individuals who are willing and in fact seek to steel man the opposing argument and find the kernel of truth in what the opposing argument is, and just using myself as a microcosm. I mean, I get the sense that I've galvanized a really powerful community of critical thinkers, people who think with nuance, who ask questions, who are curious, and unfortunately, I feel like we are going increasingly we're heading increasingly in the direction of silos, which is a bummer. Yeah. But if you can raise a family in a silo of helpers, I think that can potentially work out to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it all comes down to parenting. I think it comes down to good parenting. Making an effort to raise critical thinkers, to raise the next generation as a generation that, respects authority, but doesn't defer completely, doesn't outsource their sense of morality completely to authority.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess I am optimistic. I guess I am. I just, personally, I don't do well with screaming and tantrums.
Well, there's very little happening that warrants being outraged.
Yeah.
There's some things, but there's a lot that it doesn't really require outrage.
No.
Or that you could do this. Oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
We need to normalize just like being okay, like feeling normal, like feeling a sense of.
But this is where purpose comes in. If people are doing things and they have that sense of purpose, they not only have less time for this, but they have a mission, and they got to do that. And so it doesn't have to be a grand thing. But I do think that's why I think it is important for people to go back in and go, what do I want to do? What do I want to contribute? Because I think that protects you in so many ways.
Yeah. No, that is definitely true. And you're right that if you look statistically, we are living in the most peaceful time in human history.
Doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't feel like it, but we are. Steven Pinker. Anybody who wants to check him out,
love
like
him.
he's written a lot about this, and the fact that we now, we've got all of the world's knowledge at our fingertips 24 hours a day. Obviously it's a double-edged sword, right? There's a benefit to that. There are risks to that. But yeah, I think we are trending in the right direction. I think AI, I don't think that there's a single problem that won't be ultimately solved by AI. I think AI is, again, it's like any tool. It can, like fire can either burn you or cook your food. AI is a tool that we're going to have to learn to use responsibly, but I think it's just incredible. Like self-driving cars, right? We live in LA.
Well, especially because now everybody's on their phone. 8 years ago, I was completely opposed to, I like my freedom and I want to drive. Now I'm like, get everybody a self-driving car because nobody is looking at the road when they're doing it. So now I'm into it. I think the other thing I want to encourage people, invite people, part of the reason I train so hard and try to take care of my body is our biology is still 250,000 years old. That hasn't changed. Certain requirements are needed in order to navigate all these things that we're about to enter into. And so that primalness combined with the acceleration of AI, I think if we can have that duality, it's and getting out in nature, I think is paramount.
Yeah. But I do have faith in humanity at the end of the day. I do have faith. Take the field of medicine, right? Like there's a lot that the field of medicine can be and ought to be criticized for. Mm-hmm. But also, I have an artificial disc in my back. I was becoming crippled by the chronic pain that I'd experienced for years, and now I'm mobile and I feel amazing.
I think we do really good at catastrophic care. We're the best. So.
True that. Well, Gabby Reece, you're the best.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
I've actually got one last question for you.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Before we get to that, how can people support you, connect with you on social media, pick up your products, which we need to talk about, are amazing?
Thank you. Laird Superfood is our coffees and creamers and greens and hydrate. Actually, I think we have one of the best hydrate products on the market. It's freeze-dried coconut, and we use Aquamin. So our source of minerals is really good. It's a bioavailable mineral from Iceland, so I really appreciate that. The Gabby Reece Show, everything's Gabby Reece. So if people want to reach out, or I don't really want to argue, so if you feel like you want to argue with me, you can, but I don't really want to.
Same here.
I want to love on people and be like, hey, let's work out and do stuff hard together and learn new stuff.
Amen. Well, the last question that gets asked to everybody on the show, what does living a genius life mean to you?
Living a genius life for me is just that I had the courage to do it the way that really reflects my spirit, and to be willing to also change within that.
Beautifully put. You're the best. Thanks again for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for listening. Share this episode with friends and loved ones. Leave a rating and review if this episode resonated with you. It's a free way to support. It takes seconds to do. I really appreciate it. I read all of your reviews. You guys are the best. And I will catch you on the next episode. Peace. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.